Okay, all right. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And thank for this particular session is going to be on the scalable disaster recovery on AWS for critical applications. So my name is Vimal, and I'm a solution architect at Cloud.in. And in today's webinar, we are gonna see that how we can set up scalable disaster recovery setup with the help of AWS native tools. Right. And before going further, I would like to just mention a few points. So all attendees are muted by default and cannot be unmuted during the session. And we'll have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. And if in case you have any question in between the session, please raise your hand and to grab the attention. And running in at the last okay, welcome and the session for the I'm gonna session right. So before we go start the session, was backup and directly recovery and type methodology. So I would like to just give you about our walkthrough this cloud. So just keeping our market for last more than 6 years, and we have like two active locations so far, the Pune and the Mumbai. And as far as the workforce is concerned, so we have like 75 odd people working with us, and we have migrated projects. This is more than like 130, and it's talking about the expertise in terms of certifications. So we have dedicated resources who have 100% certified, and more than 250 workloads we have with us on the with the cloud.in, and we provide 24/7 around the clock support for NOXA. And the customer account with the cloud in terms of cloud, so the count is 200 plus. Okay, all right. So in terms of the services, which where we are just giving our expertise to our customers, so it is basically implementation and migration services. And so since we are the AWS managed AWS advanced service partner, so we provide the managed services to our clients, and we the cloud consulting and advisory, reselling, billing, or maybe the application services. And again, the CDN as services is the core area where we have the enterprise agreement with the AWS. And for the cost optimization, we have like FinOps practices in our company, and a resource augmentation if there is any requirement for any particular project, so we do provide resource augmentations. And lastly, to mention the generative AI services. So we are now with the one of the company who are having the generative AI competency, right? So we are actively participating in the lot of public sector in the commercial sector for the generative AI project. And if we talk about the industry vertical we serve, so that's media and entertainment, e-com, IT, public sector, automobile, edtech, then FMCG, financial, pharma, manufacturing, non-profit, and startups. So you can very well see here that there's the big portfolio which we cater across all the industries. All right, so let's come to our agenda for today's webinar. So basically, this is about the disaster. What is the disaster? What kind of disaster are there, and what is the term disaster recovery is about? What all are the the areas where we need to put extra attention while we are setting up any DR, right? So this is going to be an agenda for today. Like what are the steps for disaster recovery and how the functions are, and the concept definition, and what are the trade-off, and what the strategies we can have, right? Okay, so what is disaster, right? So before we just discuss the disaster and the other things, so I'll just want to quickly just set a context that why everyone today is concerned about any disastrous event. Why every company, right, whosoever is having their IT workload on the be on premises or on the any cloud, so they are pretty much concerned about the disaster recovery, right? The reason is quite simple. I mean, if for any company, the data is something which every company want to keep secure and safe, right? And you can consider data as today's currency. It's a basically it is a currency for any industry. If your data is compromised, then your reputation gone down, your all the stakeholders investments, or all the things are all on stake, right? So no company can afford any disaster in the current setup, right? Because a lot of stakeholders are associated with your business, right? So that is why today everyone is look for the backup and disaster to be not only the as an option, but it has become an mandatory thing, right? So what is the disaster? It's a unexpected event that can happen anytime, and that can disrupt organizational IT infrastructure, and the operation maybe go slow down, and it will cause your reputation loss, your revenue loss, everything, right? And what are the common example? We can see the very recent past. We have seen the pandemic like COVID-19, and you can consider like natural disaster. So is there any natural calamity is there, then again can cause disaster. And the technological failure, cyber attacks, and the human errors, these are the few examples of the disaster events, right? And how can we characterize all these disasters? So it is always an unforeseen, right? And it is impactful, it is so overwhelming. So idea is we cannot we cannot plan then when it is going to happen. We do not have any idea. So all we can do, we can be disaster ready. I mean, that's the only thing which we can do. And there's a one famous quote that everything is failing every time, right? So keeping that in mind, the one should try to just implement all the strategies around this particular concept only. All right. So the goal for disaster recovery plan is to minimize this impact by rapidly restoring critical data system and the business functions. So we cannot avoid any disaster. It is bound to happen. It is inevitable. We cannot say that okay, so we have the setup where disaster will not happen. So we cannot do that. What we can do, we can we can set up practices, and we can set up our environment in a way so that whenever there is a disaster, we always try to restore our critical application and databases as quickly as possible, right? So that was about disaster, and now we will look what is the disaster recovery, right? So when it is about the recovering from the disaster, so basically it is an ability to restore IT infrastructure functionality after the disruptive event, right? It's a critical component of the broader business continuity plan. Okay, so idea is that again, so if your infrastructure is failed, how quickly your data, your application database can be brought back to life. So that is about the disaster recovery. So how do we plan? So basically every organization today has well-defined policies and the the portfolio of that how we are going to process if any disaster strikes, right? So it's a well-documented thing. With the tools and processes are well written in the organization, and again focuses on restoring critical IT system infrastructure, software, and data. Aims to minimize downtime and data loss. So basically, it is a document which we everyone have in the IT system for any particular workload, according to use case, that how application and softwares can be brought back to life in terms of like any disaster recovery pattern. Okay, so DR in the cloud is why it is most preferred. Again, the cloud is the preferred solution for modern DR. Why? Because it eliminates the need for the separate dedicated physical recovery data center, enable faster recovery times, and greater operational resilience. All right, so basically that tells in a a conventional setup how we used to take care of that DR. So again, we had like dedicated physical server in our data center, or maybe in any other data center, so that your database and application is being in a sync. And then if anything happens, anything is going wrong, then again we have to take that setup, and then we need to again the sync our the primary server with that DR server. Then again, it was pretty much complex task, and it used to take time. Then there was a challenge with the RTO and RPO, and it was not so well well considered, so that if any data is corrupted, and again that corrupted data is being synced with the DR setup, then again there was no option to for taking care of that. So there are a lot of things which were seen from before setting up the disaster recovery solution over the cloud. So all those loopholes, all those critical area were taken into the consideration, and then came up with the concept of the disaster recovery on cloud, right? So we will see that how that help maintaining the disaster recovery setup on cloud, right? And the importance of disaster recovery. So what are the benefits, right? So if we look at the points, right? So so if we are like taking backups on cloud and setting up DR, so we make sure that your data is being protected, right? So we minimize the data loss and ensure rapid recovery of like critical information, and ensures business continuity, allow operations to resume quickly after disruption, reducing downtime. So basically, ensuring business continuity is a term we'll see going forward, which we call RTOs, right? So recovery time objective. So business continuity, we can set up in a way that your clients or your customers, whosoever is accessing your application, are not even they don't even realize that any disaster has struck at the back end, right? Because at the same time, if you put this on active mode, your application automatically failovers to your DR region, right? So there is no they don't experience that any disaster strike at all, right? Reduce financial impact, minimizes the potential revenue loss, regulatory fines, and costly recovery efforts. So basically, if we go by the reports and the researches, there is some matrices they have defined that 1 minute or maybe 5 minutes of disaster event caused them the huge money, right? So again, if there is a lot of regulatory norms are there and the compliances are there, if their application is down, then they have to pay huge amount to their stakeholders, right? So I mean, they cannot afford any application or any IT workload go offline, right? And again, in terms of reputation, so again, it's a competitive market. You have to be competitive in terms of your server uptime or your SLA. Then again, there is a need for and then if you take the advantages of cloud, then again you can very well keep your stakeholders or and all the customer trust with positively, right? And meet compliance requirement. Now if you talk about the NBFCs and the government setup and a lot of different industries which are now have made it mandate to have DR on the cloud, right? Again, you can keep like one set of your data on premises, but again you should have like one more setup or more than two set of your data on the cloud, right? So again, AWS has complies with all those requirement in terms of the options to store your data on the AWS cloud, right? All right, so what are the steps involved in the disaster recovery? So this is basically when we are planning for any particular company, any particular industry, to define how we are planning the backup and disaster recovery. So there are the steps involved. The first is the risk assessment, right? Identify potential threats and vulnerabilities to your IT system. All right, so basically this is uh, readiness, and we are just we are performing the assessment. So suppose there are the 50 application running in on premises or maybe on the AWS cloud or any other cloud for that matter. So we need to understand what are the crucial applications which are directly related to revenue loss, right? And the company cannot afford those application gone down by any chance, right? So that assessment will tell you what are the crucial resources which need to be on a on a live for the DR setup. And then again, business impact analysis (BIA) determines the financial reputation and the compliance impact or a potential disruption. All right, so that's again, if we can afford. So there are a lot of setup involved in any company, right? So one, where are the users are connecting with the any application, and sometime at the there are the application or maybe those services which are being utilized internally within the organization. So where you can afford downtime, right? So according to that, they can perform the business impact analysis, and they can go ahead with their DR implementation planning. Alright, then they develop the comprehensive plan with their clear roles, responsibility, and recovery procedures. So basically, all these steps are creating our documentations, and with each and every step, how we are going to have this in place with the proper implementation, like failure and a failback, everything needs to be maintained, documented. And then again, test maintenance, something which when we have set up the DR, and then we need to make sure that your DR your your recovery, disaster recovery is working. So again, I have to keep performing the drills for your disaster recovery. All right, how does this disaster recovery works? Basically, then we've just seen that the slide that the first we need to do the risk assessment, then detective measures. So focus on identifying unwanted events in the real time, enables a rapid response as soon as the disaster begins, and the corrective measure, right? And what the DR site is typically involve the replicating and the backing of the data and the workload to the secondary location. That's a DR site. And there is a mandate and there is a requirement. So suppose your primary site is located at some place, you need to make sure that your the secondary site should be on a distant more than around like 100 kilometers, and so that if any national calamity happens, so it is less likely to impact your DR site. All right, the site is used for restored data from the most recent backup to the server as a temporary primary location until the original site is restored. Again, the idea is to fail over in the right. Key concept and definition. So again, then basically it is telling about the difference between the backup and DR. So what is a backup? Backup is a process where we are replicating our data in a multiple location. So idea is to creating multiple copies of your data, right? And disaster recovery in a broader strategy procedure of restoring IT systems and businesses operations using those backups. So backing up it only means your data if being backed up at some safe place. Your data, whenever there is any strike, you need to be rest assured that your data is there. You can recover your data. But disaster recovery is a broader term. It is the methodology. How fast you can recover your data, and you can make your application live, up and running, right? So backup, secondary location used to restore data and operation. Historically, it was costly, dedicated, physical. So that we have already seen that what was the conventional idea of replicating your data as a backup, and then how we can do backup in the cloud. We will see again our upcoming slides. And again, the 3-2-1 rule. This used to be the best practices. When everything was on premises, the best practices for data backup and recovery. Total 3 copies of it data should be there: 1 original, 2 backups, 2 different storage media, disk and cloud, 1 copy stored offsite. Right. So we will see that how this can be done on a AWS cloud. Okay. So types of disaster recovery. So there are the common types like backups. So backup is creating copies of your data and restoring them offsite. Use case: long-term data retention and the compliance. So basically, a backup, there is a lot of mandatory things, or maybe where the audit is required, right? So there is a need for having all those backups for the longer term, like more than 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, according to the industry. So for the compliance perspective, then again we can have those data being backed up, and we can set up for a longer retention, right? So that's possible with the AWS, right? So we have like S3 bucket for that, and with the different storage tiers, so that we can store your data for a longer run. And again, there is the concept called tiering data as according to their restoration. And again, there's a pricing strategies are also there, so you're going to have like less costing when you are maintaining your data on the like deep glacier or archivals, right? And then again, backup as a service, outsourced data backup provided by third party, ideal for small to medium sized businesses without internal resources. So these are the use cases. All these things are pretty much possible with AWS. And then disaster recovery as a services, third party provider backup and host both data and IT. All right, so idea is to, you can obviously use like third party backup services as well, so that are pretty much compatible with the AWS services. And then the point in time is snapshot, creating a replica of your data database, a specific moment, quickly recovering from data corruption. Again, so idea is to point in time is not a snapshot. So again, that is a I mean, that's how we can take the snapshot, and we can enable the versioning, and we can take, or we can restore our data for any particular timestamp, right? Then virtual DR, replicating the entire IT infrastructure on offsite for virtual machine. Use case, rapidly resuming operations by failing over to virtualized environment. Disaster recovery side, again, there's a physical location with a backup of system and infrastructure. Use case is suitable for an organization with a strict compliance and control requirement. And if we look about, we talk about the benefits. These are the benefit, like a strong business continuity, enhanced security, faster recovery, reduced cost, high availability, and the better compliance, right? And the planning for DR strategy. So here comes, so before we implement actual disaster recovery plan, so here are the two key concepts which are pretty much crucial. So every approach and strategies revolves around all these two particular things. The first one is RTO and then RPO. Okay, so let's discuss RPO first, which is recovery point objective. So basically, RPO is a maximum acceptable downtime for a system or application, right? So RPO is basically a recovery point objective. So basically, it is related to your database, right? Your how frequently your database is being backed up, right? So recovery point objective is basically, suppose you have set up your database backup strategy, like every 15 minutes your data is being backed up and in a cloud, right? So so if disaster happens, so that means only 15 minutes of data loss would be there, right? So if there is a requirement, your RPO requirement is 15 minutes, then again that means you need to back up your data with the 15 minutes of frequency, right? And if we talk about the RPO is basically recovery time objective. It is the total time taken to make your application back to life, right? So your application downtime is concerned with the RTO. So we'll see that how we can implement the solution with the help of RTO or RPO. All right, so you can see this diagram. Basically, it tell about the data loss, recovery point objective RPO, and then recovery time objective. All right, so if you see on the left, the recovery point, if we are concerned, if we consider this point as where the disaster happened, right? And this is the RPO, right? And if we are backing our database in frequency of 15 minutes, so data loss would be only for the 15 minutes here, right? And if we have if we have the setup, or maybe we have designed our architecture in such a way so that your data, your application can be brought back to life within the half an hour or maybe 1 hour, then RTO is going to be 1 hour. right? So your RTO, I mean, that's a downtime is going to be 1 hour in that case. I mean, that's the strategy which we can always have an option according to our client requirement. So what are their objective in terms of RPO and RTO requirement, right? So according to their need, we can design the solution, and there are the different strategies available with the AWS cloud, right? And disaster scope and DR strategies. So the first one is the multi-AG strategies within the region. Then another one is multi-region strategies. Okay, so if the zonal failure is a concern, then we can set up a multi-AG strategies, right? So that means if we consider like India, and if we are taking Mumbai as a region, so and we are setting up the multi-AG strategies. So that means in a Mumbai region, there are the three data center or the three availability zones. So that means your data is being synced or backed up in all the three data centers, right? Or more than two data centers, you can consider that, right? So each AZ is a separate physical location, and reducing the risk of single localized. So basically, what we are doing here, we are making the redundancy, right? So we are ensuring that there is no single point of failure, right? So it is in HA, that high availability. And another point is the multi-region strategies. Multi-region is basically what it is solving. So suppose your region, Mumbai as a region, is gone down, right? So then you have to make sure that your replication and database can be accessed, or it can be taken care with the other region, right? So then again, it's a concept of having the you know having the your infrastructure set up in a way so that your workload is being accessed from the other region whenever any disaster strikes on a regional level, or maybe there is any regional outage, right? Okay, so this is basically a trade-off, right? Disaster scope and DR strategies, where the revenue is concerned and how much the cost it is going to take, right? So there are the four strategies basically. If we just put in two different ways, so the one is like active, and then is the active passive. So if we talk about the active passive, there are like three strategies. The one is the backup and restore, other one is the pilot light, and third one is the warm standby. And for active, this is a multi-site active approach. So I mean, it's a pretty much obvious that if you see that multi-site active, the cost is definitely is gonna double of your like as your primary site. So idea is for like multi-site active, we are running our workload parallelly in two different regions, right? So whenever there is a disaster strikes, it is making sure your automatic failover is happening, and your users, or maybe your now the requests are redirect to your DR region, right? So at the same time, your cost is going to be a double, right? And talking about the backup and restore, where, and again, the multi-site active, what is the requirement? If you want to correlate this word, the multi-site active, just consider any banking setup, right? So banking is a segment which is so much crucial that not even for a minute time can be afforded for like data loss, or maybe the your application uptime, right? So idea is to where we are considering RTO 0 and RPO as a 0. I mean, there is no data loss, there shouldn't be any downtime for application, right? So that's the expectations from any banking side. We all can relate to that, right? So if any banking service need to be have like DR, disaster recovery strategy, then it must have multi-site active, and not only and they can also go for like multi-cloud strategies as well, right, at the same time. All right, so and just consider there is some website or maybe some application which is not pretty much crucial, and they can afford the downtime and the data loss. Then again, there is a strategy which called backup and restore, right? So where RTO, RPO is not pretty much concerned. They are okay. RTO they are considering maybe for a day, or RPO data replication, they are considering okay, like 3 hours or maybe once a day, right? Then we can use this strategies backup and restore, right? Idea is to make sure that your data is being backed up according to your requirement, and whenever there is a any disaster strikes, then you have like enough time to have your data then again back your application database on up and running. And another one is a pilot light. Pilot light is basically where your RTO RPO is still required. Like if you see that what is the time of data live, like tens of minute data live services idle cost. All right, so pilot light is basically where your database is basically backed up, right? For your crucial database is being backed up. RPO is taken care, but RPO is not a challenge, right? So in terms of RPO can be considered 4 hours, 6 hours maybe, right? So but the cost is higher than the backup and restore, but it's still less than the warm standby and the multi-site active, right? And the warm standby means your database is hydrated with the recent updates, and your applications are your maybe the application uh, or maybe web server application servers are uh, set up already with the help of like the DNS pointing is there, your workload is well defined, but there is a no request is going. The only the lighter version of your application or maybe database are running, right? So whenever there is a requirement, we can make sure we can just scale up according to your production workload whenever disaster strikes, right? So these are the few strategies we can go at detailing with our client according to their need, right? So once the RTO and RPO is we understand the requirement, then we can go and just check which strategies okay for our client, right? All right, so basically this is the image which is telling the disaster scope and DR strategies. The first if we look at the on the left, it's active passive DR. So in an active passive is basically the data is being backed up on active passive. Whenever disaster strikes, we will just we will just make sure that now we can access our data with the help of like active passive. And this is not running parallelly. The load is going only with the one the active locations only, right? And if we look at the right side where the active setup, we can see that in a normal operation the requests are going in a both direction. I mean there is a health check is being taken care. So once your the primary site is down, then your all the traffic or your requests are routed to the active location which is the DR site, right? So basically this is how the architecture looks like. All right, so again this is a diagram which we have already discussed that how backup and restore works. So basically this is a representation where AWS cloud region and AZs are set up, and EBS volumes are basically being backed up, and all the backups are there in the S3 bucket. Talking about the RDS, and again the S3 is the point where all the snapshot for RDS are also being populated. And if we talk about the EFS, then again we have like AWS backup service to taking your backup, right? And once we want to make sure that and this is cross region backup basically. And so we can basically what we are doing here on a regional failure. So we are making sure that we are taking all those backups in our DR region. So suppose our primary is in Mumbai region, and then we can make a strategy to have all those backup in the Hyderabad region, right? So that we have all our data snapshots in the different region, and then we can restore all those data, right? So you can see that we can connect with the EC2, and then we can restore all those data to the Amazon RDS in case if it is required. All right, so backup with the AWS region, the multi-region, and what's the problem statement. HA strategies will replicate data corruption or human error across all edges. For example, it's a bug or a human action corrupt data, that corrupted data will be replicated everywhere, right? The solution, the true DR, you must also implement data backup within the region. These backups should support point-in-time recovery to allow to rewind or the last known good state before the corruption occurred. Okay, okay. So this is basically where we need to make sure that there are different versions of data is being generated, right? So suppose there you're at a point of time where your data is whatever data it is now being bugged, right? So again, suppose it's a version A, right, which was okay and it was not malicious, and again at the very next moment your data is bugged, and it is has some malware or maybe some kind of a bad actor, and the version is now created A.1. So now the version A.1 is basically a corrupted version. So what we are having all those versions with us. So rather than having left with no choice, we have our previous version as well with us. So that was version A. So what we can do, we can restore our data from the version A. So that is what has been trying to showcase in this particular slide, right? All right. So it is also mentioned that Amazon S3 with the versioning Amazon DynamoDB RDS provides a feature for point-in-time recovery. All right, DR architecture backup and to another region, how it works. So basically, there is the concept called the cross-region replication. We have just seen the diagram in the previous slide, right? The account separation, we can also create like different account setup for separate credentials. That are also possible, right? All right, recovery, if disaster takes down your primary region, you can restore your workload and operate from the backup data in the recovery region. All right, so as we discussed that how pilot light, right? So you can see here we are in the pilot light. Basically, it is a more concerned about the RPO, recovery point objective. So we are using on a primary, it's a Aurora DB. So basically, Aurora global table we are considering, and that there is a asynchronous cross-region replication is being take place. Aurora is replicated on a DR side as well, but you see there is a no servers for application and the front end, right? So idea here is to RTO, we have like enough time to make our downtime is not a concern basically here. So the only concern here is the data loss. So that is why we are using the pilot light as a strategy, and this is how the architecture is going to be, right? And if we want RTO to be minimized like 15 minutes, half an hour, then the concept called now the warm standby. Now you can see here again RPO is taken care, but at the same time we have applications and the front end server, which is being the warm standby. Again, idea is these are uh, the resources which are there in an application server. These are the small scale server. This is full-fledged application, right? So here, this you can see here that it is inactive for the production traffic. So no going for now on the DR side. Now comes the multi-site active. Okay, so now here you can see that your load is going at both the end. Both the sites are active, right? Your both region, your web front applications or database are up and running, right? So suppose the disaster strike on a primary region, it is failover. The traffic will fail over on the DR side. So your the whosoever is trying to access the website or your application even realize that any disaster is strike at the backend. All right, so these are the different tools. Which we see that we are maintaining or designing the disaster, which basically have recovery. One is the object storage and use for storage. This is basically AWS backup automate backup policies, and central various AWS service. Low cost option data archival with longer retreat, and Amazon option for long-term times. Again, as we mentioned in our slides, there is a compliance requirement or requirement is there. We have this where we can some related. So we have always can take all the snapshot logs for that matter for longer duration with the lowest possible cost. Right? And then for automating the back such as triggering back schedule based on specific conditions. Right? And again, for pilot light, downward evaluation services for this is we can use this to backup and at the same time we want it maybe on the RDS or maybe the any particular service. So what we can do, we can use this DNS service, and what the feature it is having the changed data capture, which we call CDC, and the SCT, which is the schema conversion tool, right? So at the same time, it is handling all the schema conversion and real time data capturing, right? And again, for routing, we have Amazon Route 53. It manages DNS pointing, traffic routing, switch between the main site or the primary site and the DR site. So these are the tools which plays a very crucial role. The tools which plays a role preventing any disaster recovery and the backup. Right? And again, there are a few tools we can see here. That's implementing warm standby, like auto scaling, elastic load, cloud formation. So cloud formation is formation is basically code how it can help here. Basically, write a script and how it will help us. So it will help us provisioning resources in a very fast pace. Into we can minimize our RTO, like recovery time at the minimum with the help of the cloud formation, right? And objective and multi-site, the cross region of S3 Amazon are to maintain up-to-date data for these multiple AWS regions. Cloud front, the Amazon reduce region for previous slides. These are the additional tool. Amazon RDS Aurora, basically these are the AWS managed databases. Amazon S3 we have seen earlier also. Amazon AWS Data Sync, again automate data movement between the on-premises storage service like S3 and EFS. And EBS, we have seen that how we can use create a snapshot and how we can automate with the help of DLM, right? And AWS Storage Gateway basically bridges on-premises environment with the cloud storage for hybrid data replication. Although all these services have like their use case, but in our today's agenda, we are not we are not deep diving on these particular services. Okay, so maybe in another session, we can see that how all these services can be used for backing your data or maybe for data transfer from on-premises to AWS. Right? And then automating, we have seen the cloud formation, Lambda, and for monitoring resources and triggering automated, we have the Cloud Watch, and the Cloud Elastic Beanstalk automates the deployment, the scaling the web application during recovery. A step function, again, it is we are not going deep dive for these services. Amazon Route 53, we have seen monitoring, alerting. These are the services which we can use. Right. So I guess that's where we can just conclude this particular webinar, right? And at the last, I would just request if you have any questions, so you can ask your doubts so that I can answer that. And again, I would request to everyone, please scan this QR code and submit your feedback so that we can next time we can just make our presentation or more comprehensive and helpful for you. So you all are welcome. You can have your you can have your doubts being asked. So I'm here to just answer all your questions. All right, I guess we don't have any questions for now. All right. All right. So okay. So I guess we can conclude today's session. I would like to just thank you all once again for attending this webinar. It was a session. I think that you guys have now enough idea how AWS can help providing the backup and disaster recovery setup with the different services and tools. Right. So thank you everyone.